You don't need to spend $3,000 to get a good speaker. I'm going to talk about 9 of them today that are perfect for you in every situation. Whether you're just getting started, setting up a system in the garage, or getting a secondary system in your hi-fi sweat lodge, this is the video that you need to watch. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about 9 budget speakers that are going to make you forget that your life is meaningless, you're working a dead-end job, and that Ted across the street still hasn't returned your angle grinder. Ground rules. First of all of these speakers are going to be under $600 MSRP, and some of them go on sale. They're passive only. No powered speakers, no Bluetooth, no amps, no cup holders. Passive, just like Dad used to listen to. We're going to talk about the speaker's sound profile, its flavor. We'll briefly talk about the specs of each speaker, but you shouldn't pay attention to those, so I don't know why we're going to talk about the specs of each speaker, except that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. Then I'm going to talk about where these speakers should live, in my opinion. We're going to put a label on them. Put baby in a corner, but instead of Jennifer Grey, it's going to be a 12-pound MDF box filled with tweeters and a woofer. And if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to give you my picks, my favorite speakers, which is meaningless because I don't like watching professional football or watermelon. My opinions are wildly unpopular. Sound flavors are going to be divided into a few different categories. Warm, think wearing a cardigan, by a fire, sipping tea, and judging your playlist silently with its pinky out. Warm. Exciting on top. You'll hear cymbals. You'll hear acoustic guitars hanging out. You'll hear something if you have hearing damage and the higher frequencies. This is the speaker for old people. And me. The V-curve, the rock and roll speaker, the one that the audiophiles hate. You know, a speaker that most normal people like. Neutral, which is the Switzerland of speakers, which means it kind of stinks. It's not very good on the bottom, not very good on top. Just kidding. Some people like that, and it's okay. Our first speaker is the XT20 from Pulk. It comes in at an MSRP of $250, but it regularly goes on sale. You can also look at the XT15. It's a smaller version, but I would just go ahead and get the 20 because I think it sounds better. 6.5-inch woofer, 1-inch soft dome tweeter that they call Terraline. They claim a frequency response of 38 all the way up to 40,000 hertz. This is the 99 Hyundai accent of speakers. Roll up windows, hubcaps, 5-speed manual transmission, but it does have air conditioning and it will get you to where you need to go, and it's cheap. But it's not winning any beauty contests because it's ugly. And the vinyl wrap is probably going to start peeling off if you move this thing around more than 2 times in a year. So put it somewhere and leave it there if you don't want the vinyl wrap to peel off. Sound profile. It's V-shaped. It's bumped on the bass, sparkly on the highs, but the bass is sloppy, the mid-range is wearing a hoodie, and the high end is truncated and really more of an impression of a cymbal than an actual cymbal. But that's okay, because these sound fun, they should live in your garage, and you should pump some Motley Crue through them. The XT20 from Pulk, a great garage speaker. If the XT20 is the member of the family that made questionable life decisions, did a little time at county, the Pulk R100 is his buttoned-up brother with an MBA and a LinkedIn profile. Same DNA, different life choices. The R100 has a 1-inch ring radiator, which is a trickle-down technology from some of their higher-end speakers. Now, it's not all great because the top end can be a little bit icy. However, the sound profile from this one is not going to offend your audiophile neighbor. It's a way more neutral, refined speaker, and you can actually hear some mid-range on this one. However, you're not going to have nearly as much bottom end as you will from the XT20, but it's actually going to be accurate bottom end. But if you're looking for a soundtrack to change the distributor and ignition coil, this is not the speaker for you. This one lives in the living room. The ELAC Debut 3.0s. They have a 1-inch aluminum dome tweeter and a 6 or a 5-inch woofer. MSRP, $500 or $400. These will probably go on sale though. Frequency response reported 42 for the big boys all the way up to 38,000. 87 dB sensitive, which means these are actually pretty easy to drive, especially compared to when the debuts first came out. If you listen to Fugazi or bootlegs of Lou Reed, this is the speaker for you. Because it's a little bit warm. It knocks off the jagged edges of terrible recordings faster than your mom knocked off your Yankees hat when you were walking into church, which is really fast. They're bassy, they're full on the bottom, they're not sloppy, and they make everything sound good. It's like the couch that you don't want to get out of because you can listen to it all day. Unlike Pink Floyd, which I can't listen to all day. I'm kidding, the Pink Floyd's an ongoing joke. Again, unpopular opinion of mine. This speaker would live in your living room or your library. So, if you want a speaker that's going to treat your music collection like a fond memory instead of a forensic investigation, maybe consider the ELAC Debut 3.0s. The Emotiva XB2s come in at an MSRP of $550. But Emotiva regularly has 20% off sales and also offers a military discount. So thank you, Emotiva. I wish every company would do that. 6.5-inch woven fiber cone woofer and a 1-inch AMT folded ribbon tweeter. And this is your first introduction into everything. The everything speaker, because you can hear it all. It's revealing and addicting. Like discounted peach cobbler that I got last night at the Walmart neighborhood market. And I discovered that the whole thing has 3,100 calories because I turned the box over last night and did some math and was filled with shame because I realized I was stress eating and that I now had type 2 diabetes. Diabetes. Wilford Brimley. Do you know in Cocoon he was like my age now? This thing is dynamic, it's well balanced, it does everything well. It's like getting new transitions, lenses. You can see everything with your ears. If you don't want to start a lifelong audiophile journey though, don't buy this speaker because you will hear extra things in your music and you will now be hooked and have an insatiable desire to continue to improve your music. But beware, if you have a bad recording, you're going to hear it on this speaker. It lives in an office, it lives in a living room, it lives in a garage because it does everything well. There's also a smaller version, the XB1, but the XB2 isn't too big. You can still put it on your desk or next to your desk. And it comes in any color as long as it's black. The Vanguard Scouts coming in at $299 for a pair with real wood veneer. These things are gorgeous, but they are small, and because they're small and neutral, balanced, even dynamic, they take a lot of power. You're going to need some juice on them. If this was a beauty contest, well then the Vanguard Scouts would win. However, putting these in the garage would be like asking Miss Connecticut to drop the gas tank on your rusted CJ7. It's not happening. These should be next to your desk or in a den next to a leather chair and a vintage turntable. They're pretty. However, they don't have Himalayan swine bark. I don't know what type of wood it is, but it's supposed to be real wood. The new Q Acoustics 3020Cs coming in at $549 MSRP. They have a whole bunch of trickle-down technology from higher end speakers from Q Acoustics. They have continuous curved drivers, more bracing than my 12-year-old's advanced math class. Get it? Braces. They're pretty. If Emotiva is a Harley Davidson, then the Q Acoustics would be a Ducati. Sound, very neutral. Just dynamic enough though that I don't feel like I'm listening to half a speaker. If you can put a high pass filter on these and get a sub, they happily live in your living room, but they probably should be in a smaller room, your hi-fi sweat lodge or your library. If you want something stylish, European enough that it makes everything else feel a little bit insecure, then the 3020Cs are probably the speaker for you. The Cambridge Audio SX50 Tiny but mighty. These come in at $230 and have a reported frequency response of 50 Hz up to 22,000 Hz, a sensitivity of 87 dB, which isn't terrible. 1-inch silk dome tweeter and a 5 1/4 inch treated paper cone woofer. Sonically, they're a little bit V-shaped, and because they are, surprisingly, I don't feel like I need a subwoofer when I have these on. However, if you have a lot of pipe organ in your Spotify playlists, you're probably going to want a subwoofer for these. What they will need, though, is either a high-pass filter or a smaller room. You can try to push them, but it's going to be like having Miss Connecticut load up soybeans into the planter. These things are more at home on my desk than a coffee stain, which I have a lot of coffee stains on my desk, which means they should be a desktop speaker. The SX50, perfect first speaker for your apartment, your dorm, a crawl space. The all-new Sony SSC-S5 Mark II. One of my favorite speakers. Now this one's even my favorite speakers. Come in at $250, but if you spend $250 on these speakers, you might as well go buy a Jeep Cherokee and pay the dealer markup on it. Buy them at $150, because that's how good they are. They're a great $150 speaker. Slightly V-shaped with a little bit of nudge on top, but that makes everything sound real nice. Another great first speaker for people. Big enough that if you put a high-pass filter on them and a subwoofer, you can play them in a big room. These live in a medium-sized room though. Not quite as punchy on the bottom as the first gen. They're also more balanced in the mid-range. They're also small enough for a desktop speaker. Mine are right here. I love them quite a bit. Very cool. I love them. I don't love them at $250 though. Finally, the Numei BS5s. I think they come in about $120. You can also look at the Silk 4s coming in at $200. These are both very neutral speakers, small speakers. The BS5 are ported on the front so you can put them on your desk right against the wall, but to be fair, almost a lot of these speakers need to be shoved up against the wall, even if they have a rear port, so that you get a little bit more bass out of them because they're small. The Numeis ain't gonna play in a big room, but they do sound good. The Silks are a little bit more dynamic and kind of would be my choice, but also they're about $70 more expensive than the BS5s. If you're okay with an Amazon speaker and a direct from China company, then check out the Numeis because they're pretty solid. My overall pick, I know this will be shocking if you watch the channel on a regular basis, is going to be the Emotiva XB2s. They do everything great. They can live in a big room, garage, living room, hi-fi sweat lodge, crawl space. It doesn't matter. The XB2s are going to shock you with their clarity and awesomeness. They're also, I think, a little bit warmer than the previous generation. So mid-range and top end, I think, actually sounds more organic. These things are just incredible. However, if you listen to a lot of poorly recorded music, then the ELAC 3.0 is the way to go. These are affordable, play big, and you can listen to them all day. If you want top-end clarity though, or if you have a lot of hearing damage on the top, these are not the speakers for you. These things are probably also getting ready to go on sale. Desktop speaker choice is going to be the Cambridge Audio SX50. They're just awesome. And at $230, are a ton of fun. If you want a little bit more of an audiophile refined sound for your desktop, then the 3020Cs should be your choice. If I missed something, please put it in the comments, but these are a bunch of awesome speakers that have different flavors and can live in different places in your life. You can check out the links in the description. Coffee Club, you can check that out. Patreon, bunch of links in the description. Those will probably be affiliate links, which means if you click and you buy, I get a commission. Doesn't cost you any more though, so it's a great way to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching.